First of all, Dr. Brown, I want you to, do you give me permission to use this video to show on television and online?
Now, state that again.
Okay. Do you give me permission to use this video that I'm recording of you to show on television and online?
You have my permission.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Dr. Brown, tell me a little bit about growing up here in Dothan.
Growing up in Dothan, Alabama, Houston County. When I was a child, my sisters and brothers, we pretty much grew up the same way all other black kids grew up. Of course, when it came to having a good home, we had that. My mother, Miss Myland Brown, who lived to be 97, she was a Christian woman, and she very much believed in doing the right thing. She believed in loving your neighbor like you love yourself. And my father was a very good man. What I remember most about him is that he always made sure that we had 3 meals a day. We had a place to stay. And I always said, the roof didn't leak. My dad was something special. He had a little comedy also. He'd always tell me, son, listen to your daddy, because I've been through it and I'm still going through trials and tribulations. He said, but where there's a will, there's a way. And I want you to go to that classroom every day, do what the teacher said, and get your assignments. And by following instructions, you don't have to go through what you see your daddy going through. Because the bottom line is a good quality education. And because I don't have that, and wasn't able to get that because of restrictions, I had to go through all kind of toil and all type of objections and type things. But I was so proud because he didn't let those type of things stop him. The judgments, the name calling, and not having all the pleasure that other people had. I used to observe students in my classroom, not all of them, some of them, they were able to go on vacation during the summertime. I know some of the students in my class, the black students, the parents even had cars. My parents never had a car. Never had a car. But I knew why. Because cars, like everything else, cost money. They are expensive. And you have to have a certain amount of income to support what I would call a car, which is a luxury. But still, my daddy put first things first. Food, clothes, and shelter. Good manners. Obeying your teacher. Obeying adults. He believed in what you call conditioning to the situation. He was something special. And sometimes he'd make the landing soft because he liked to use riddles and stuff like that to make a point. He said, son, when you're going to make a decision, give it some time. Think about it overnight, especially a major decision. He said, because the way I see it, my dad had taught me, if you're going to make an important decision, he said, always look before you leap. Because if you look ahead of time, chances are you're going to come out well, because your decisions is going to be made on solid ground. And that we always worked about it, solid ground. My dad never purchased anything that he couldn't pay for. That's what I remember. He also taught me, you take it, pay your bills. He said, if you don't have but a quarter left, always pay your bills. My daddy, Henry Brown, he was an example of the word of your bond. That was very important back then. It's important today, based on a certain age category. But when I was growing up, a lot of times our parents didn't have any money. Cotton was the main thing we had to deal with. I used to be cotton all day long for $2. All day long for $2. But that's all we had. When I was born, fast food places didn't exist. So youngsters didn't have fast food places working like they have now. But still, we obeyed our parents, obeyed the rules and regulations, in spite of the name calling. Being discriminated against downtown and other places, at the 5 and 10 cent store, like Crest, Newberry, Woolworth. In the bathroom downtown, for black folk would say colored women. But for white folk, they would say white ladies. You see, they made a difference. Colored and white. But still, we knew already that we were very important. Just as important as anybody else. The bottom line is to go ahead and run the race. Get that lesson. My daddy said, get your ABCs. Get your ABCs. And each time the class reports were due from the school, my daddy would wait. He'd check those grades. My dad did not allow us to come in there with failing grades. He didn't allow that. You got 3 meals a day, you got a place to stay, and the roof don't leak. So you make sure you get your lesson. I tell you something else too. My dad used to tell us how much cotton to pick too. That was always interesting to me. We were picking the cotton, but Dad would tell us how much to pick. And he used that statement and said, bring me. When he said, bring me 200 a day, that meant 200 pounds of cotton. Therefore, to do this, you had to get up early in the morning while the dew was still on the cotton, because it had more weight like that. But we made it. And eventually, I tell my former students when I started teaching that I helped raise salaries in the cotton field, minimum wage in the cotton field. So my former students said, Dr. Brown, how you do that? I said, for the longest, we got $2 all day long for picking cotton in the hot sun. Well, how about the raise of it? I said, the owner decided to add 50 cents. So from then on, we got $2.50. that was the minimum wage. That was the funniest thing. But we made it. And that sun would be so hot. Remind me of the sun thing that we just had. All this heat and stuff like that. So sometimes our parents, senior sister, say you young going, keep on down there. We're going to the shade a while. I said, Mama. I said, we're hot too. Why can't we go to the shade? And Mama said, you can't go to the shade because you ain't finished your roll. That great day in the morning. It's like a lady from Harvard or Yale saying something like that. That is so smart. Ever since that time, I've been cotton field. I always use that for all my students. And I taught 45 years all over the United States, even in South America, in Guyana. when President Nixon left office in 1974, I was a consultant in Guyana, South America. Isn't that something? So when it comes to education, if you want to move forward, it doesn't matter what time, age, or whatever, if you got those ABCs together, you're going to make some headway. You're going to move forward. Okay. In spite of. We just have to keep plugging along.
Okay, Dr. Brown, you said that Monroe Page was your cousin.
Uh-huh.
So tell me about Monroe Page. What kind of guy was it? He owned a lot of property. He was a businessman.
Well, Uncle Monroe was, I can imagine, the most highly respected black man in Dothan, Houston County, about that time. He had an insurance company down what called 5 Point, here in Dothan. He had a funeral service down there in 5 Points. He had property all over Dothan, whatever. In fact, Monroe Page's sister was my grandmama. And my grandmama was my mama's mama. But Monroe Page was the only black person that drove a Cadillac because he had those kind of resources, had that kind of respect. And he's very smart as a businessman. So in Dothan, in a section called Astor Planet Hill, Monroe Street run between Pride Street and Bayshore Street. My family and I used to live on Monroe Street. And Uncle Monroe had the largest house anywhere around here. Uncle Monroe had a house that was built like the plantation owners that you find out in West Main, or small country town, or a place like Bainbridge, Georgia. And Bainbridge, Georgia has such large houses. Nowadays, they're maintained by the Department of Interior because they serve as a part of the tourism industry. Well, my Uncle Monroe, he was the only black man in Dothan that had a tall house. And the chandeliers would come way down, and we had a dark hallway. And I remember that so well because I used to carry the Dothan. And every day I go in and take it by the paper. She was Aunt Gussie. Aunt Gussie, Monroe Page. And she was a very attractive lady. I think she was probably Indian, from some group of Indians, what have you. And she was just as sweet as she could be. And Uncle Monroe had about 5 or 6 children. And they were very active, very businesslike. He had twins. Zonnie was a classroom teacher during her teaching days. Zonnie. Then Ernie was the boy that helped run the business. So Ernie and Zonnie, those were Uncle Monroe's twins. And Uncle Monroe had to be very shrewd and use his head for something beside the hat rack. So although the white population, they were doing crooked, criminal things, but they didn't want the blacks to involve and enjoy that luxury. So Uncle Monroe, when he get the message of word that he was being watched for whatever he was doing that was considered illegal, he would stop by the house there at 1215 in Bayshore, and my grandma would walk out to the curb. Uncle Monroe would go to the pocket and give my grandma a roll of money and go back in the house. Therefore, if the police had stopped him, they wouldn't find anything on him. So there were all kinds of things, and my dad said, undercover was done. But Uncle Monroe, I think, got the benefit because he had down on Cherry Street. He right down there was 5 Point. And they had a country club down there. So the black folk had such an enjoyable time, especially on weekend. And my Uncle Monroe had a lot to do with that because he had the money. He had the respect. And when folk went to him for business, they would go to the right place because he didn't have to separate a few words. He reminded me of that commercial that's still on television about, I think, E.F. Hutton. That commercial said when E.F. Hutton spoke, everybody listened. When he was back then, Uncle Monroe, because of his authority and respect, he was E.F. Hutton back during that time. It wouldn't be at this time because he was such a smart man. And then he had about six sons too, and they were all smart. But then as time went along, and those kids and the girls and the men grew up, they left the South and went north. And a lot of them went to Detroit, Michigan. I remember them. I can see them right now. And they did quite well. They stayed up there because of racism. And they never did come back down here to stay. But I can see them right now. And it's all because, and my daddy said, get your ABCs, learn your lesson. You see, I'm out there, I had to dig that ditch with a shovel because they didn't have automation. You're dead out of that cold weather. I say, I saw it, Daddy. He said, well, if you don't get your lesson, you'll be out here doing the same thing. This here, my dad said, it make believe. And back then, our parents, we didn't have a lot of money to go to the movie and stuff like that. But whatever he saw was untrue, he said, come here. He said, that's make believe. That's not true. Do not do with that. Do not deal with that. It's harmful.
Dr. Brown, do you remember some of the businesses, black-owned businesses? There were quite a few down in 5 Points.
That's right.
Can you name some? Do you remember some of them? Can you name some for me?
Down in that 5 Point area, you probably start up there. Here's Bernardshaw Street here. And here's, you turn left and go down to 5 Point. So Miss Adams, a beautician, had a successful beauty parlor right here. You go down a little further, on this side, a black man had a barber shop on here. You go down a little further, they had a place called the Cotton Club. And it had the same type of, I guess, appeal, the same type of culture that the famous Cotton Club had in Harlem, New York City. And that was a very cultural type setting because people that was involved with vaudeville back then, entertainers that would come through, they would perform at the Cotton Club and keep going, but they come down to 5 Point. And then Mr. Fair had a liquor store down there that he called Salt and Pepper. Mr. W.C. Fair, because he was some kin to me too, but W.C. Fair, he had a liquor store. And Dr. Jimerson had his dentistry upstairs across the street during that time. And the Marbles had a barbershop downstairs, and the dentistry was upstairs. So you had, Mr. Fair had a liquor store. The dentist was up there. The barbershop was down here. You know, here on the backside, you had men selling primarily hot dogs all the time. And that whole surrounding right there was sort of like an assembly place on the weekend. So when people put on their finery, like my uncle, I had 6 brothers. I had 6 uncles and 3 brothers. My mama was also 9 children. She has 3 sisters and 6 brothers. 2 of my brothers fought. They was in World War II. That type of thing. So going back to Five Point, you talking about having a good time. I do not remember. What I should remember when the silent scream from New Orleans, the best of show you ever see. Every year, they're going to a silent screen. They come to Dothan. And they were set up right there on Bunnysaw on East Union. Right there where that 7-Eleven place been there a long time. Because they got a retirement home there. But silent screen would come here when I was a little boy. Like vaudeville. You have people that peg leg weights. You have other people that Pearl Bailey came through there. Some whites came through there. But you don't hear anything like that. And I could have purchased a book about silent screen from New Orleans. But I didn't at the time. I had planned to go back. But I'm going to Barnes & Noble, so they get it for me. But Blacksmiths came through Five Point. There was a whole lot of activity going on, musicians, and those girls from your Creoles. Those Creoles, they could dance, and they were musicians. Like every year, when they have a funeral in New Orleans, they go down there sort of sad, but when they come back, everybody blew. Well, the people that came to Cherry Street down there, they were the same way. A lot of musicians, I said, I'm ready. Can I go? Because he'd get all sharp. Back then, you know how the grown folk would have a handkerchief and sort of hang out a little bit, hang out the back of the tail. Boy, you talk about some good time. About 5 points. Oh, it's just like a while back. You get an article in the paper called Baptist Bottom. In the paper, Baptist Bottom was sort of like that, across town. And then over here, between Rain Street and Cherry Street, right in here, that community was called, I got away from it.
Pleasant View.
But there was certain community.
Pleasant View.
Huh?
Pleasant View. Tell me about Pleasant View.
Now, Pleasant View, it had its own culture. Fun-loving people, you know. And there were 2 or 3 people that lived in there. They gave Pleasant View its reputation. And there's a black woman that lived in there. She was like a white woman. They called Red Annie. And she gave the police a fit when they came in there. Because Red Annie, she'd get drunk and rain sand. And they had to come in and get Red Annie to take it out of town. But all that was connected, coming out of Cherry Street and going down to Baptist Bottom. And you had, I remember Mr. Payne, photographer, used to take pictures downtown. He stayed right on Parker Street. house is still there. I know this because I had a dope dealer. I had the largest dope dealer right on the hill or whatever. I was the best I ever had. And I stopped in 1952. Had the dope dealer, went off to college. But I remember the history about downtown. And I remember people said, "Come here, son. You see that? That's about it. You see that man? That store right there? You see that white man there?" I said, "You need something else? You go tell him I sent you." I said, "Boy, how my daddy get all that power down here in Pleasantville?" It's because his word was bond. He could get everything he wanted going through Baptist Bond. But then sometimes when Daddy on the shore, he went through Baptist Bond in Pleasantville. He had to know to go downtown to Bloomberg. I'm watching all this stuff, see. Even right now, I know where to go, because being the oldest boy. My daddy took me everywhere. He did. He couldn't take the rest of the girls and the two boys. So right now, well, some people know that. I think Mr. McRoy, he may not remember his daddy would. But there was so much stuff going on down there. But that was a mecca of survival. And I tell people, I say, go down to go to the library and check out a phone book. And some of the black businesses were downtown. I mean down in, what's it called? It's in there. But you got to know what you might recall a while back. The year 2000, anniversary, a lot of publications came out. They were in the stands in the drugstore. So I was going through the thing, and I saw two cousins in that book. And I got to go back and get it. So I was done. See, I'm some kids to the Weems also. And they were down in Ashford and Gordon and Coward. All down. And when my cousin female died, what have you? So we're down through the different communities. When cousin female died, she was 100 years old. So my mama called me. The son said, "We got death in the family." So I came home. And they don't do that much now. But they had a cousin Phoebe when she died. White folk came from everywhere down there. But being a historian, and some of us knew already that the whites and the black look out for one another even now. There's some black female with Alabama State where I got my BS and master's. Because they work on the plantation stuff down there. And then they come down to the bottom and stuff, other places on Saturday, and you come out having a good time. But I remember all that, so I started talking about it. So I said, "Dr. Brown, you remember that?" I said, "I'm not supposed to remember that. I got a brain. I got a mind." And our mom and daddy told me, and they said, they double dog dare to fail. I don't care how much you went down here, the folk over here. All right, card time, let me have it. And there's a word If any of you got one of them old report cards, that cards here, I got some. I showed to the student. And one word that they would check before they check the grades, a word called deportment. Some of y'all, if you might remember that word, deportment. You don't see it on record now. But they got a place of deportment. And if you got that check on certain grades and you fail, you didn't go to the games, you didn't go to the basketball, you didn't go to the movie, and you should have went to church in Sunday school then, but that part of the punishment.
Is there anything in particular that you remember that is it something that you want to talk about, you know, growing up here and getting your education, or just stuff that happened in this area? Now, you said a lot of people came to the Cotton Club. Do you remember some of the, I know you said Silas Green, and you said Pearl, what's the?
Yeah, you remember Pearl Bailey?
Pearl Bailey.
Yeah, Pearl Bailey. She been deceased for years now. But Pearl Bailey was something special. She could sing, dance, also, and she was represented to the UN while she's still living. Pearl Bailey.
Yeah. Now.
So, and like Cab Calloway.
Okay, let me get you started. Okay, who else came here?
You had Peg-Leg Bates. Remember Peg-Leg? You see him on Ed Sullivan show? He had just one leg. Piggy Markland. You remember those guys that said, used to be on the Ed Sullivan show? They were sitting there and said, Pig, yeah. You see my wife? No, I ain't seen her. Pig, I don't know where she is. You sure you ain't seen my wife? Because if you see my wife, you would tell me, because me and you remember the same lodge. So she'd mess around, or have you tell me. Now, Pig, you know, we just like brothers. And she'd mess around on you. I'll let you know. Pig say, have no drink. Now I'm gonna ask you again. Pig, he said, have you seen my wife? He said, I hate to tell you, but Pig, you got a dirty woman. That's the kind of stage stuff.
Yeah.
You got over at the car club in Baptist Park. They also had a club in Indiana too.
Okay. Tell me about Cab Calloway.
Now Cab Calloway, I didn't see him put him, but he's a famous musician.
Okay. Tell me about him. Did he go to the Cotton Club?
No, I didn't see him at the Cotton Club.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, when I was teaching, I check out that film. If you want to see all those people, when they're still young and unknown, look at that movie, Stormy Weather. Have you ever seen it? You seen Stormy Weather?
Mm-hmm.
The folk that we talking, they're all in there. Alina Horn.
Yeah.
All them folk there, Armstrong. I've been to the Cotton Club. Everybody ever go. I went to the Playboy Club. When I worked in the state of New York, I worked for the State University of New York. I went to Washington, D.C. I used to go up there and go like to Copacabana in New York City. And the last time I went to the Copacabana, this guy's a crooner. He saw like he was a crooner. They called like a Bing Crosby. I apologize. Remember that song? When I had a tumor right here, then when I had a tonsillectomy, then I had cataract surgery. So the student went, Dr. Brown, we didn't know you had all that. I said, well, none of your business. You ain't no doctor. I go to the doctor for you. For what's something for? I said, except y'all take medicine. You don't know what it is, so you just take it. I never been that way. That's why I'm still here now. So you call Dr. Brown. I need a job here. I need a scholarship here. I said, call to somebody. See, I got to find a student, the president of Wilberforce in my house. The vice president, one of my former students. The president of Alabama, that's one of my students. See, the rest of them, they be shucking it down. That's why I don't take no stuff. That's why people send for me the one that want it done. Later called me and said, "No, man." I said, "We go to court with me and my son." All right. He said, "You shoplifted at Target." So somebody had told me to contact me. I said, "Where's your son?" So I said, go get a regular haircut. Put on a shirt and tie. And we said, there. So a few months ago, Judge Anderson passed. I sure hated that. He said, I got to go to Judge Anderson court. That's all she wrote. All they got was, you full of spending status. And don't you come back in here. See? So just like that commercial, I think they call him by E.F. Hutton. They say when Hutton spoke, everybody's listening. But I'll tell you now, sir, I'm Hutton too. Ask him.